Nice little simple unit. And now it's dropped. Hey guys, welcome back to Red Box Racing and 4x4. Today, we're back on the Jeep. So, bit of an update here because I've done some work off camera. Drive shafts. We've got them figured out. They're not done, but we're figured out. What we're gonna do is we can use the truck's output shaft for the rear and the Jeep's. This is the original drive shaft out of my Jeep before I put the lift in it. So it's about 1/4 of an inch longer than what was in there for the rear. And a standard 1350 to 1310 U-joint, adapter U-joint at the transfer case end. And that's gonna work perfectly. It gets me lots of spline engagement. The spline engages all the way out to here at ride height, which should give me about 1/2 inch for compression, which should be lots, I think. So that's perfect. That's easy, and it costs me $30 for a U-joint. I can actually use the drive shaft, front drive shaft out of the truck. So Spicer does make an adapter U-joint to go from the GM, I think it's the 44R U-joint, to the Jeep standard 1310. What I can do is I'll replace this U-joint up here with the GM one, the 44R. Down here, I'll use a 44R to 1310 adapter U-joint, and that'll go on the diff. The only catch here, and why I can't just bolt this one in, is it needs to be shortened by 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch. I got to do the final measure up on that, but that's where this is at. So that's drive shafts sorted. Now, we also have some shiny new parts. Well, bam! Okay, so these are Amazon block hugger headers. I will put the link on the card right there. They stick out from the block 4 inches, so pretty standard for a block hugger. And I mean, they seem reasonably well built. But I guess only time will tell, right? There's a good chance they could just crack right away. They were pretty cheap. But it's the only thing I could get here in time to keep me on schedule to have this thing moving under its own power by Father's Day. So this one is an EGR block off. Nice little simple unit. And now it's dropped. It just goes right in the EGR port. And it's got a mill ring on it. This one is a block off for the GM's evap controller, or evap purge valve. The only reason I want to get rid of that is it just sticks up a long ways, and it's going to make it hard to get hood clearance. I'd have to bang on the hood, and then I risk denting it. Or I could just use the Jeep's factory purge valve and put the Jeep's plug onto the GM's pinouts. So that's probably what we're going to do. All right, guys, well, the conversion U-joint we needed for the rear drive shaft got here today. Despite being a Saturday, it's not a name brand joint because, again, this is another one of the ones where my lack of planning has bit me in the ass. I'm putting in a cheap U-joint, I know that. It's only gonna have to get it moving. I will put quality ones in. I just need something to get it rolling for Father's Day. So a couple things before we put that in. Some advice for if you're doing U-joints. Get yourself one of these. It's a little line hone. All right, so what I like to do before I even put in U-joints, I take my little hone here. It's got a spring in it. It's just a small 3-stone line hone. And lube of your choice. I'm using RLC, which is just like a penetrating lube. Give it a couple shots of that. Just a little bit to take the rust off, that's all. Now, that mostly applies to drive shafts that, you know, it's been a while, or, you know, factory setups, that kind of thing. Because my second piece of advice will help you not have to do that again. Because you don't want to do it too much. Eventually the clearances would open up and, well, then you're in real trouble. My second piece of advice, never seize them. Before you put the new ones in, just take, well, that's a lot. Take a little bit of this. It's just bog standard never seize. And you just put it in the holes. I know it makes the job messy, but if you ever have to take the U-joint out, trust me, you will thank me that you did it. What kind of cheap ass grease did they put in this thing? Oof. Now, my preferred method for putting the U-joints in is either with my hydraulic press or just simply with my vise. The vise is, I kind of prefer, at least for the first bit, because I find it gives you a little bit more feel for what the U-joint's trying to do. All right, we officially have a drive shaft. Doop, 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 doop. I still got to put the U-joint straps on, but I'm not doing that right now. Yes, it sticks out a little bit more than it did on the Chevy by about 1.25 inches. It's not permanent. And as long as I don't abuse it too much, it should be fine. Alright guys, we've got a couple other things figured out here. Our power steering lines are figured out. We used the Jeep's factory return line. And I trimmed it to fit, so it just kind of goes over, down, and in. We used the Chevy's power steering or hydraulic line that goes from the pump up to its hydro boost, and I just tweaked this bend and then bent it around here so that this line didn't foul on the steering shaft, because we don't need that rubbing through, it makes a mess. And then for the return off the Chevy, for the unused return, we'll just put a cap on that with a clamp. Pretty easy. That actually worked out pretty good. And again, we're just using parts that we already had. So, win. For coolant lines, this one came off the truck. It was the one that comes up and across and in. And of course, we just trimmed it to get the section we needed. So this one will be a little more interesting. I've had to order a aftermarket thermostat housing. It's a swivel one that's a 90 degree, so we can come straight off, down, over, and in. I should be able to find a pre-bent hose at the parts store that does that. I'd be very surprised if I couldn't. All right, guys, so both these block-off plates wound up fitting extremely well. For as cheap as they were, I'm actually pretty impressed. There was absolutely no dramas there. Alright guys, we got clearance. That's all sorted, the intake manifold's done. Both those block-off plates worked amazing. There we go. So you can see there the black Sharpie line. That's, I think, where I'm gonna have to cut. So the plan is I'm just gonna carry this curve that the factory cut in out a bit further to the corner of the engine mount.
please. Oh, my shoulder slumped. Chalky.
Sorry about the abrupt stop to the video this week, guys. We're in the mad headlong rush to try and finish this for Father's Day, so you'll have to put up with a little change. Yes, yes. Take off all the shedding fluff.